First, I want to thank you for everything. And I'd like to know your definition of self-realization.
Oh, there are a number of things that we want to put into this definition, but we're going to give you the first and most important one first. Self-realization is vibrational awareness of source energy and conscious ability to attune to it. So it requires understanding that it's a vibrational universe, understanding that the higher frequencies feel really good because it's resistance that makes them feel uncomfortable, and an effective utilization of my personal emotional guidance system in order to consistently tune to the higher frequencies. Self-realization is realizing that I'm more than this physical body, that there's a larger part of me who is aware of me, who realizes me. Self-realization has to be about realizing that Source realizes me and tuning to that realization. Because Source always loves me even when I think I'm bad. And if I think I'm bad, that's not self-realization. That's a distortion. That's a flawed premise. Source loves others always. And if I'm finding some reason not to, then that's not self-realization. That's self-deprivation. Yeah. Good conversation. We like it.
Thank you.
Something else?
Any tips on if you're back and forth with something?
If you're back and forth with something, then your vibration is scattered enough that you're not receiving the consistent momentum from the vortex. Now, let's talk about this just for a minute, because you know when you're in that situation where should I or shouldn't I could do this or I could do that, don't know what to do, what are the best choices for me to make? We want you to consider that you've put all of the details into your vortex and they're shining bright, and the Source within you is standing there knowing a magnificent sequence of events that's just going to surprise and delight you. Mm-hmm. So if your dominant intent is to make yourself feel as good as you can feel as much as you can, rampages of appreciation are wonderful, but sometimes you can't get there because your vibration is too far different. Meditation is a really good way to raise your vibration, because when you stop thought, you stop vibration, and when you stop vibration, you stop resistance, and when you stop resistance, your vibration raises. So anything that you can do that makes you feel a little better is really the thing that we would be going after. Every process that we've ever offered is toward that purpose. It's for the purpose of raising vibration. So when you realize that the vortex is full of all kinds of things you want and is really who you really are, and you are working deliberately to raise your vibration, then what happens is, as the frequency of you in your day-to-day experience comes up to the frequency of where your Source is. So you're sort of like this. Your Source is steady and above. The frequencies of your Source fluctuate too, but your ability to discern those fluctuations is non-existent. It would talk about beta gamma, something. In other words, you do not have the ability to discern the fluctuation in that frequency. So let's just say it's constant from your perspective. Yours is fluctuating a bit, but as you stay more in the range of who you are now, because your frequencies are harmonious, now ideas and inspiration is going to flow to you. And that's the way we would make, if we were standing in your physical shoes, every decision. If you're still in this either or thing, you're not there. If I could do this or I could do that, you're not there. But so we'd just keep pondering it, and we would continue to say general things like, well, things are always working out for me, and I'll get clearer about this, and I don't have to make the decision right now, and when I'm ready for the decision, it will come to me. It will come to me in an idea that is so clear that wild horses could not keep me from it. And those are the kind of decisions that we would make. Sometimes, do you ever have a moment like that where you're just so sure about something? So you proceed, and then you have buyer's remorse. Well, it doesn't mean that you weren't right the first time. It means you were a vibrational match to your vortex the first time. During the buyer's remorse, you're not. Now you're beating the drum of something unwanted. In other words, you were there, you got the idea, then you fluctuated, and then the idea is just left hanging there, you see. That was a good conversation. So what'd you get from it?
Stay up there.
And?
Try to maintain it.
And?
And
Don't try too hard. Don't get yourself in a position where you are forced to make a decision until you've had time to align energy first. In other words, line up and then make your decisions. Never make a decision from a place of knowing what you don't want. Because when you make a decision from a place of knowing what you don't want, guess what momentum's working for you? More of what you don't want's going to come. More of what you don't want's going to come. More of what you don't want's going to come. More of what you don't want's going to come. Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Yeah.
That might have been the most important question I've ever heard.
Yeah.
This construct.
And the answer was good too, didn't you think?
The answer was brilliant. So can we milk that a little bit, because it's really a big deal?
Yeah, take it from where it sits with you.
So when she asked about self-realization, I got this sense of becoming conscious of our centeredness in Source. And this idea
Conscious of self. Jerry was always putting on the spines of the books, self-help from total self.
Right. The intentional consciousness part of that we're having this great conversation at breakfast about when you make a big left turn into a new idea, and this feels like a huge momentum left turn into a big new idea about becoming intentionally conscious in our place in Source and shifting our focus from the physical to the vibration with deep intention and full realization of where we stand.
Yeah. We're glad it feels like a new dramatic left turn. That's what we've been saying to you from the moment we opened Esther's mouth.
Well, it took a while for us to catch up with it.
Well, we're glad that you're hearing it in this more powerful way. And we think that the steps that it required, these are the steps that it takes to come to that self-realization. We're just going to speak them for you here, and then we're going to go beyond with you. So first, you have to accept that this is a vibrational universe and that you are too.
Right.
Next, you have to accept that law of attraction manages the vibrational frequencies. And that when you put out a frequency based upon what you're giving your attention to, feedback is going to come that lets you know what that frequency is. Next, you must accept that you are a multidimensional being, and for the purpose of this life experience, that there is a larger part of you who is non-physical and eternal, and there is a physical part of you who is also eternal, but the physical you and the non-physical you must be understood, and the relationship with each other must be understood, or at least accepted that those two perspectives exist. Because until you accept that there is a source part of you and a physical part of you, then your guidance system doesn't make any sense. And once you're able to show yourself through consistent emotional awareness, that that the very fact that you could feel negative emotion at all means that there's a larger part of you that feels differently. And once you get that, then you understand, then you have a chance at self-realization. But now, who is the self that you are realizing? It's the total self. It's the whole of you. Because we stand as the expanded version of what you are, but we want to include all. In other words, we're not totally, hear this, we're not totally self-realized until we are self-actualized through you. Now hear what that means. Hear what that means. That means here you are on the furthest leading edge, stirring it up and deciding it, but then coming into alignment with it so that it can manifest. That's that full actualization that we are talking about. That's why we all revel in the self-actualization of our self-realization, you see.
Because those two things interact to literally create
They
the
are
universe.
inextricably tied,
It's
eternally,
perfect.
you see.
It's perfect.
Eternally.
Action is such a juicy and absolutely essential part of the experience. So never wanting to go away from the action and wanting to hold that place in source.
And let's say action manifestation. Let's tie it all together, because there's a lot of self-actualization that does not require your action. It requires your observation, it requires your acknowledgement, it requires your awareness of it, but it's not action, it's realization.
It is, I get that.
Yeah, you do.
It's that feeling. There is the feeling that underlies action is the same feeling that underlies realization. You don't have to do the physical movement. You have to be in the flow to get that feeling, and that's what manifests.
So let's go back to
instantly.
the earlier, perfectly stated. Let's go back to that earlier question. So give me some tips on how to know what decisions to make or what's the right direction. So now, having had this conversation, we want to say, when you realize that the larger part of you knows the perfect unfolding that will satisfy the most of the intentions that you have in place, and you are taking the action of meditation, of basking, of rampaging, of looking for positive aspects, so that you are coming into constant, consistent alignment with who you really are, so that now the vibration between you and who you are is so harmonious and so consistent. So then, under those conditions, then the ideas flow, and the actualization, the realization is your experience.